Hey there, inner peacemaker. Cassandra Kimball here with an episode for busy giving parents, which today's Christ-centered self-help tool comes in part from the author Stephen Covey. This is episode 23, helping your frustrated child with her attitude and map. My 8-year-old and I just created a handmade paper chart. We did this a few nights ago. A little chart. It has rows and columns for her to put a sticker inside one of the boxes each time she transitions from a fun activity she's doing to another task with a kinder, better attitude. This is one of her goals to work on. And it's important for my daughter to know that I never want her or any of my kids to become non-feeling like robots or kids that are like only happy. That actually to me is not my intention. I don't think that's natural to just only be happy in life. I actually want my kids to feel feelings and have lots of practice while they are in their years at like home with me. But the reason my daughter has a personal goal right now, um, that includes this chart, is because both her and I have noticed that more and more recently with this sweet 8-year-old daughter, um, that her superpower of being sensitive, she's just kind of still learning how to feel those sensitive feelings in a healthy way for her. She even got like a priesthood blessing at the beginning of the school year to be able to practice and learn how a healthier way for her to experience and practice her emotions. So, for example, we love going to our local library. It's just this really tiny, it's literally one room. It's a very small library in my small town here. But last week she was enjoying a little scavenger hunt. The librarian does this really fun scavenger hunt every month. She does a new one, and she prints out a piece of paper. It has a riddle on it, and you walk around the library finding the clues that um, each little clue around the library has like a letter on it, and it decodes the riddle. It's really cute, and my kids love it because when you answer the riddle, you go up to the librarian and she gives you a little prize for for doing the activity. And so my daughter enjoyed doing that. And then Caitlin also had fun doing this like virtual reality headset that you can put on your head. And she was playing a game on that. And Savannah was playing these little Minecraft blocks. They have like magnetic functions in them. So they click together. It's just really fun. So we got a bunch of new books. We love the library. So um, I when we went last week, I gave like my normal like heads up preparation for like it's almost time to go. So I'm like, time to do your ending scene. It's almost time to leave, right? Like a phrase that they're used to. And that's worked for a long time. My kids are used to me saying that. Kind of mentally prepares them like, okay, it's the last thing I'm gonna do. But lately, children keep changing, right? So do our parenting. And just more and more I've noticed that it's harder for my sweet Caitlin to stop doing something fun. And I totally don't blame her. I love that part of her that just, she loves doing fun things. She's my yellow personality child. And when she is present with you, she is all there with you. Like she gives all of her attention. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful part of her. She loves to have fun, to create and organize fun. She's all in. So when it's time to leave, she doesn't just whine or complain or ask for a few more minutes. She does that too. But now there's this new added layer of of being pretty angry or really frustrated. I'm gonna use the word frustrated, but it's like this really anger, this amount of angry frustration inside of her. So it's like this frustrated pouting. It usually involves like walking, which is like the stomping now, and her face looks so disappointed and upset. And she'll like loudly walk, like that stomping I was telling you. And if we're inside our house, like she'll stomp up every step up the stairs and opens and closes the doors really fast. And it's just this new upset attitude that's newer to me for her. And I found that I can't usually talk to my daughter in the moment about it. She's just so worked up. But later on, I can. And at this time at the library, I tried like talking in the car, and she's like, I don't want to talk about it right now. And that's fine. I don't want to force it. So I waited till we were home, we calmly discussed it with her dad and her, and not in a belittling way or anything. Again, I don't want my daughter to become a robot and not feel big feelings. That's not what I hope for. Like as an emotions life coach, like I truly do believe that emotions are gifts from God even. And so I want my daughter to feel in this life. And I did share with Caitlin um, that as her mom, like I don't I don't feel like bringing her back anytime soon to the library if we want to repeat like those big negative feelings. I just That wasn't fun for me to leave the library that way. And yeah, I want it to be a fun experience. And as we left, it was like this bitter taste in all of our mouths, right? Like it just wasn't fun anymore. So I've learned like I can practice being a mom of many emotions for my kids. So I've pondered over frustration. Since I honor all emotions, I reflected what gift I could see with this big emotion. And I've come to love the gift of frustration because frustration sees the fun ending or stopping, right, in a certain way. I love that frustration can be there to let us know it's not fun to be done with something really enjoyable. I love that we can feel so much joy in a certain activity, and to do something else is just hard to even think about. So I too see frustration in like a change of plans when the next thing isn't as fun. I love that part of us. Frustrated part of us is looking out for the level of joy in our life. Isn't that awesome? Frustration's amazing. What an awesome emotion. I then wondered how to help frustration. That frustrated part of us, how can I help it feel seen or heard and helped inside of my daughter? Because I know for me, a lot of times I can write out these steps and I'm like, how can I help my daughter do these steps too, right? I'm in her emotions coach, right? As her mom, and all of us are, right? To help nurture our kids and to support the growth of our kids. So I talked with her about it. And I asked if she had any ideas, first of all, to help her practice that transition so that it wasn't so hard on her. Like, I want us to practice, right? I don't want it to be so hard on her and our family. And if it happens at school, right? Like, I want to help her. And whenever we brainstorm ideas together, I've noticed this about, especially about this one daughter, that I have to make like a conscious effort. Just, just knowing her, I just have to make this effort inside of me to never belittle any of her ideas because she comes up with some pretty big ideas sometimes. So I should make this intentional effort. Like, I want to hear all of her ideas, and I don't want her to think I'm belittling any of them. So when we're brainstorming, right? I remember learning this in English class in college that when you brainstorm, you don't edit anything. You just let all the ideas flow. And then afterward, then you kind of narrow it down and you pick the best one, right? So she had a few of those big ideas, and I just tried being intentionally like, I'm so proud of myself too for I was like, that would be so awesome. Great idea, right? Like I was trying really hard to just accept all of her ideas in the brainstorming stage. And then at the end, we both landed on um some kind of reward system of some kind. And we talked about maybe that would be kind of fun to have a sticker chart that one I was telling you about. And then when she fills out the whole sticker chart, that she gets a dollar um, gift at Goodwill. To me, that is worth it. I love that she wants to practice this way. I love that we brainstorm together. And and I playfully we like Lego movies, and so like in the Lego movie, when Lego Batman is talking with Wild Style, Batman starts to complain and moan and like his Lego head like slowly turns around as he's like moaning, and then his girlfriend says, "I need you to have a better attitude." And he says, "I have a great attitude." So at the top of her chart, my daughter's chart, I playfully put the quote, "I have a great attitude." It just made both of us smile. So that's what's hanging on her bedroom door right now. But this topic of attitudes is so interesting, like the timing of it, because I just started a new book this week by Stephen R. Covey called Six Events, the Restoration Model for Solving Life's Problems. And the chapter I'm in is talking about attitudes. I'm like, oh, perfect. This is perfect for me right now. And I hope it's helpful to you too. But this was interesting to me when I read this. It said, if you want to make small improvements in your life, change your behavior, change your attitude. Okay, I want to pause right there. I thought, oh, great, this is what I want. I want a small change, right? But then he adds this. He said, if you want to make quantum improvements, change your paradigm, your map. In other words, begin to look at life and the world from an entirely different level of thinking. Then and only then will behavior and attitude become important. End quote. Is this perfect timing to be reading this from my mom heart? This is like the very thing I'm striving to nurture my daughter about, right? To encourage the growth of my daughter in this area of her life. We both recognize she's struggling a little bit with this. It's this new phase. And so I'm seeing like, what can I do better to help her not only practice, because it is, I do think that's a great, like the reward thing we've got, the sticker chart. I love that. It's good practice. And that feels fun to her. She's like excited to do it. Like, great, let's do that. But I also, now with help of Stephen R. Covey, I love this idea of, um, I also want to help change the map or paradigm, right? Or the big picture for my daughter. The vision or view of like why she's doing this, not just for like, so you get a dollar little stuffed animal, right? Like, I want her to see a bigger picture of why she's doing this. So as I was writing this episode this week, I wondered, why do I want her to be able to transition to different tasks with less frustration? Or if she's going to feel big frustration, how do I help her in a healthy way? Like for both of us. Because right now I just watch with wide eyes as she stomps off and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I'm like, why do I want to be able to help her? And I quickly thought, my first initial reaction is like, well, frustration doesn't feel good internally, right? Even though we're gonna feel it. It doesn't feel good to sit in frustration. Secondly, if frustration bottles up or continues, I start, at least for myself, and I see it in my daughter, you start acting in ways that you don't love acting. Sometimes you explode in frustration. Like there's like this rippling effect, right, of this negativity. So it doesn't feel good. And sometimes it bottles up or ripples out into actions that you don't like, right? So when I thought of this, I'm like, I have not yet, I have not yet taught her how to process frustration. I haven't taught her that yet. And to think frustration and help that part of her so that the frustration side of her feels seen, heard, and helped. Um, in the movie Inside Out, in the second one, they give um, a little character that plays anxiety inside of Riley. They give her like a little chair and they give her a warm drink to help her It's like a little massage chair, I think, and a warm drink to help her, right? And um, and that's the same thing I just imagine right in my head of like I'm trying to help frustration to be seen and heard and helped. Um, so I want that same thing with my daughter, that map of I want my daughter to see is to see that frustration is normal and healthy and to let it go through in a healthy way is going to be a beautiful thing. And it can take some time to process, but you can do it. I want my daughter to hear these words from me. And I want her to see that um I want her to see actually the negative side of that too. If we do keep spiraling in frustration in negative ways, it can ripple into negative actions, right? Like I told you, she stomps off, slams doors, and pouts and complains, which is fine. But I'm just wondering if that could even lead into more negative actions in the future. Um, it made me think of like the negative rippling effect when Jonah, for example, did not want to do his next task, right? He did not choose to accept his assignment to teach the people of Nineveh, right? When he tried to outrun the Lord in his frustration, right? He tried to literally run away from the Lord's assignment. So he went on a ship. And then on that ship, though, he got thrown overboard. He was swallowed by a whale because he tried to run away from his assignment, right? That frustration inside of him, it's like, no, I do not want to do that. I thought of the negative rippling effect of like the brothers of Joseph and like the Joseph, the coat of many colors story, right? The brothers' frustration that rippled into like eventually lying to their father and selling their brother. Or like Laman and Lemuel's built up frustration, which eventually they beat up their brother and they later tied him to a boat. Like, right? If you just keep building up this frustration, there's negative rippling effects in our lives. So I want my 8-year-old to see these examples, right? This map. I want her to see it in her head of what happens what could happen, right? Like when we don't process frustration in a healthy way. So I think Stephen Covey gives this tremendous example, which I love it in his book, um, of a time when his attitude shifted because his internal map, like his perspective, changed. So I'm going to read this to you. And he said, I've often shared how several years ago I had an experience with a change in paradigm while riding to church one Sunday morning in a New York City subway. It was a fairly quiet ride until a father and his children entered our subway car. The children seemed completely undisciplined and unruly, and they violated the whole spirit of that calm Sabbath morning. They were running around, jumping up and down, pulling people's newspapers down, and even purposely bumping into people. The father sat right next to me, put his head down, and didn't even try to control them. After waiting several minutes to see if he was going to do something about them, I turned to him and said, Sir, don't you think you could handle your children a little better? They're upsetting a lot of people. He looked he looked up as if he had just become aware of the problem, and then he said, Oh, I know, I'm sorry. We have come from the hospital where my wife just died. I guess the kids don't quite know how to take it, and frankly, I don't either. Stephen Covey goes on to say, Believe me, my paradigm of that whole situation shifted immediately and dramatically, and I suddenly desired with all my heart to help that family. Why? Because I now had a different map of the same reality, a map that was more accurate. And then he just finishes up by saying, Now consider what might have happened if the paradigm shift had never occurred. If I never found out what had really happened, I might have sat there trying hard not to let the situation bother me, right? Some of us do that, right? We're trying to be nice to other people, but inside getting more and more upset. Or through a sense of embarrassment or annoyance, I might have felt obligated to help somehow to make those children behave. In other words, I might have tried to force either my attitude or my behavior. But after the shift, I no longer had to try to change my attitude about the situation, and I no longer felt the need to make the children behave. My attitude and my behavior changed instantly. without forcing them in the slightest. I didn't have to try harder. I didn't have to increase my willpower. The change emerged naturally from the new paradigm, from my new understanding of the situation. Right. And that's what I want. End quote. That's the end of that. Um, like after reading this, I knew I wanted to help my daughter not only like have this fun, playful way to practice having more positive attitude. I wanted her to see a new map, right? To see these examples in the scriptures of the reason why we don't want to stay in irritation. And I want her to hear me say, like, I don't want you to just try to be happier, right? Because that's what he was doing on the subway, right? He's like, I could have just told myself, like, just try to be nice to those people, right? It was like a forced feeling, more willpower, right? But like this, I want my daughter to see the picture, this map, right, of the negative effects of people in the scriptures who didn't help process emotion in a healthy way. You know, we've talked about Laman and Lemuel, and I was thinking, I'm like, they did not want to leave their home and all their belongings. I don't blame them. Like, it says that they murmured. And I shared this last night during my daughter's personal scripture study, and I reminded her that they didn't change their attitude, right? And we talked about that already. Like when they stayed in frustration and murmuring, it was bottling up, and they hurt their brother and tied him to the boat later, and right. And it is certainly is healthy to feel those big emotions. I want her to know you're totally healthy, you're a normal person. We just want to healthily process those feelings. And so while we talk about Laman and Lemuel's example of bottling them up and keeping them and having those feelings inside of them, I think it's so awesome that the scriptures also include that Nephi had big feelings. I have come to love this verse in First Nephi 2:16. It said, says Nephi, I did cry unto the Lord, and behold, he did visit me and did soften my heart. Pause right there. That means he had a hard heart at first, right? I don't blame him. I would too. If I had to leave my home, all my belongings, I would have a hard heart at first, I think. I think that would be very hard. Let's read that again. I did cry unto the Lord, and behold, he did visit me and did soften my heart, that I did believe all the words which had been spoken by my father. Wherefore I did not rebel against him like unto my brothers. He did not rebel because the Lord helped his heart, right? Nephi's heart was softened. So at some point it was hard. It was softened. The Lord helped him do that. That is using the Savior's atonement. He can help our hearts change. And I'm so grateful that we have this example from Nephi. He included God in his thought work, in his big emotions. I love, love, love that that was included in the Book of Mormon. Um, and I know like we've been looking at some big scale examples of like people moving from their houses and Jonah being eaten by a big fish and like those are big examples, but I think it's important to teach those to my daughter. And I talked about the example of Nephi last night in our scripture study. I do want to share about Jonah too. And I'm so grateful for Stephen R. Covey reminding me that instead of focusing solely on like changing your attitude, about offering my daughter a different map to look at as well, right? Because I want her to see how wonderful her frustration emotion is and how she is so blessed to have such joyful things in her life. I'm so glad she loves the library so much. She doesn't want to leave or end doing that. I love that part of her. And I also love the example we just read about Nephi of turning to the Lord to help, because that is my step in my process of processing big emotions. Is we humbly pray to invite God's light and love into our thoughts, right? So I just love that. I love that we want to teach our kids that to include Him. We take a breath, We're including God. Sometimes I just say, like, please help. I take a deep breath in. Please help. And we want to thank frustration for being there, right? Frustration is such an awesome emotion. Notices all the joy that we have in our life in that task that we just did or that activity we just did. We want to thank that emotion. And then we want to see how can we help that emotion, right? What's the next step going forward? Um, I love this. I love that we can learn from the scriptures. I love Stephen R. Covey's advice to us to help change the map for our kids. And yeah, that we can do this work with God. So I'm grateful for Nephi for his example too. Um, so I just want you to know that I really do believe that you are an inner peacemaker, especially with your child that may have some big frustrated feelings when they transition to different activities. And um, I'm so glad they and yourself, right? Like that we're able to feel those big feelings. They really are gifts from a loving Heavenly Father. So I just wanted to share that this week. So I hope good luck with your kids and their big feelings. You got this. You're doing great. So until next week, take care, inner peacemaker.